Hello, thank you for clicking on the video. This is my Kramer Focus VT211S that I've done a few modifications to, and I will tell you a little bit about it as the video progresses. And you can pay special note here to the head that I've got a Floyd Rose locking nut sort of just floating there, kind of like the nut buster. So I will go into that as we go through the video here. So what I did first, this thing comes with a white pick guard. To me it looked kind of cheesy. I know it's a tuxedo look. I preferred the black, and really this guitar was intended to become an EVH white version of the first album guitar, and then I used the back as a background for the stripes. But once I got this new pick guard on it, I liked it so much I just couldn't bear to paint over it. It just looked kind of classy. So, you know, it's a really cool guitar, and it plays phenomenally well. So what you may have heard about this guitar, is that the tuners are absolute garbage. And they really are. They're not even worth playing. In fact, this guitar, I took the tuners off. I didn't even try and play it. I took them off, and you look close, you can see the original little screw holes. I don't really care about that. These tuners were from a Kramer Beretta special where I had upgraded to some Goto locking tuners. So that was okay, and it worked phenomenally. You do need to drill out the holes. That's something you'll need to do. And if you notice here on these things, it's got a very satin neck. In fact, it almost feels bare. Not really like a Squire bare, but it feels that way. But it's just got a really, really thin coat of some kind of a urethane on the guitar. But, you know, the finish on this thing's gorgeous. I mean, it's so beautiful. As I said, I really couldn't bear doing anything to it. And it's probably about the same thickness as a Squire, but it plays awesome. So, and one thing you've probably heard about these is that they definitely have fret sprout. Both of these that I bought had fret sprout, but within about a half hour, it's perfect. It's beautiful. What I did here is I did replace the nut with the Graphtec nut, and it seemed to help. I thought the black would look better with this guitar. Now this floating Floyd nut is another thing, and I have to more or less give credit to the designers of the nut buster. I never really thought about letting a nut just sort of float there, but it did work. And what it is that the strings help keep whatever string may move in the nut. It keeps them together, so it doesn't go out of tune. It is really shocking, and I was surprised, and I actually liked it so much. I tested it on my Mexi Fender Strat, which I just love. It's a beautiful guitar. I wanted to say, I'm going to have a guitar that doesn't have any modifications to it. Just play it the way it is and see. But no matter what, you use a trem enough, even with a good nut, it's going to go out of tune. It just eventually will, and I don't want to keep screwing around and adjusting it. I just want to keep playing and going, and when they eventually stretch, then I will just go ahead and loosen the nut a little bit, or the bolt on the nut, and just adjust my strings, and on I go. So anyway, that's what I did with this. At least that's why that thing is sort of floating there, but it works phenomenally. This happens to be a left-handed nut, so when you flip it over, you can look here and see that I did it because it kind of goes with the contour of the neck. So it kind of fits better, and I could put it really nice and close to the nut, so it's the most effective. So just get a left-handed one. This one I think was the, what do they call it, the R2, I think. But anyway, that went with the width of this neck, which it's a pretty decent width. It's not as wide though as a Fender. So anyway, just measure yours if you want to try something like this. But we're talking about what effectively is a $35 nut buster of a high quality nut. You can go with Goto, you could go with Floyd Rose, either one works great. But I've been really, really happy with this, and it couldn't be easier to install. You just slide it in under the strings, maybe slack up the trem a little bit, slide it under, drop the little caps on there, and Then what I do is I just finger tighten them just so the strings are pushing down a tiny bit, just enough, but it will still allow you to tune the guitar. And when you're ready, you just sort of cinch down the middle one first and then just cinch down all three, and then you just tighten them up and on they go, and it works. So anyway, on we go. So do I want to go into here that besides putting on the black pick guard with the, you know, the laminated white in between, which adds a touch of class, what I also did is I swapped out the cheesy fake plastic chrome knobs, and I just put these Fender, these are actual real Fender knobs, and it just looked a lot classier. But the important thing that I did here too with functionality is the trem. And what I do to all of mine, once I discovered PRS screws, which have a little notch, which I will demonstrate in a minute, it just makes it where this thing could just really go way down there. You can't do that with standard screws. There's just no way to do it. But if you look at the amount of tilt I get out of this thing, I mean, I can go to completely slack. Kind of hard to do this. Maybe I can. Sounds awful, but listen. Just completely slack. Just nothing. Gone. Just nothing. Stays in tune reasonably well. So what I did is that if you look at this bridge down here, you can see that what I did is I ran a countersink bit into the holes. I clamped the plate without the block onto it into a vise. In fact, I'll show you another one up close. You'll see here that I drill these out. When you look up close, you can see they look countersunk, and that's just all of them come this way anymore, maybe even old Fender ones. So to give you a little bit of room, so when you're taking the plate and tipping it, that the screw doesn't hang up too soon if it was just a straight hole. But it's still not a knife edge. So what I do is that I drill these out. I've got another video that I'll put in the description how I drill out these holes, and I put a knife edge on these. And what that does is allow it to both work with the PRS screws, which I sell and you can buy online. And let me see if I got a little bag of these things in here. Pretty sure that I do. Where are they? Here we go. Hold on one second. So you can see here, if you look closely at these screws up at the top, you should be able to see a little notch below the head. And why this helps is because when you put this screw through into the body and then you match up that groove with that knife edge, it will bite into the knife edge like this. I'm not sure if you can see this, but you look here and it aligns, and it allows you to float the bridge too if you want, which is nearly impossible to do with a standard bridge, but these PRS screws allow that, and that's worthwhile. And I've never seen a place that charged over $20, so they're anywhere from $12 to $19, and you get these screws. So I highly recommend these. One of the best mods you can do to this stock guitar. I did the same thing to this one. So anyway, you do that and you just get absolutely incredible action. But the thing is, it's smooth. It feels just like a PRS bridge, if anybody's felt one, but really even feels a lot like a Floyd. They're just flawless. Or say a Mexi Strat with a 2-point. It's just, there's nothing like it. This is the cheapest thing that you can do to your guitar to make it better besides for this guitar, tuners, and this is a must. Those are two things that you've got to do. But you know, going back to this little VT211S, it's just really a pretty guitar. And I'll show you in a second what I did also to the string guides to give you. So for the sake of this angle I've got here, I took off the Floyd locking nut and I want to show you the angle of my strings. Now, this is what you want. You want a very, very gentle angle going off the nut here, because any bit of downward pressure, anything you have, if you can look at that, it's going to make the string drag on that nut. So even with a good Graphtec nut, it was really, really important to get that angle. You want as little as possible to where it doesn't buzz, but it's just enough. Now, this guitar already came with 2 of these, which in my opinion, I think that's better. Fender should do it as well. But what I did is I bought these rounded. So rather than the straight, if you look at these, I have to take this off here. Look very closely at these string locks. If you look, they're rounded. They got a little bit of that round on there, which that allows the string to go in curved, the minimal of drag, super dirt cheap. But if you look really close, you can see that these are not the typical bushings that you would use. What these are is ferrules that I got from the plumbing aisle at the local Ace Hardware. And the thing is, they ended up being the perfect height. But the beauty is the screw fit right through, and I can set these any height I want. Because this brass is so soft, you can just file it and get it just perfect. And again, if you look at it, it's just very, very gradual. The angle is just right, and it's just enough. Now, this helped with being in tune, but I found that the E string and the A, they're kind of close enough to the nut that they tend to kind of unwind a little bit, and they can hang up. So that's one thing why I think the Floyd helped a lot. And even though the Graphtec nut works fantastic, and really, you know, it goes pretty well, you know, it works, and it seems to stay in tune pretty well. If I really start cranking on it with a trem, it will eventually go out, but this is about as good as you're gonna get. You got to not have a too steep of an angle off of this, so I can't encourage you enough to really take the time to get these things there in a good spot, very, very gradual. And if you stand back and you see it, that's the best way to do it. It'll just work better. So what I want to do now is I want to show you how really easy it is to use one of these left-handed Floyd locking nuts. In this case, hopefully you can see that this is the LH43. So that's the one that I bought for this particular guitar. I think that's the same one that will go on a Fender Strat. So I'm going to stand up here because it'll be easier. But you take it and you can see the angle just makes it where it fits that contour a little bit better. You can get it closer to that, and you just slide it in there, hold it up in place, and you take the middle cap and you just screw it on there. So it's just kind of holding it in place for you. It's moved as close to the nut as possible. And then you take the other two and you just gently, it's not tight, it's not going to lock anything at that point, but you just want to make sure that the strings are depressed just enough. You don't need very much. And in this case, you know, if you look here, you can see that they're really not raised up out of the groove for the nut. It's just sitting there. So, and I'm hoping you can hear this. And then I want you to see, then what I do is I start with a middle one and I just go very, very gently with the middle one, and then I'll do the top one because it is turning to the right. And then I come here and I can go around and I just cinch them a little bit. That's it. Okay, and now so for the sake of getting even a better look at what's going on here, I'm hoping that this clamp will hold, is Now watch when I depress the trim what is going on with the whole nut. Not sure how well you can see that. The whole thing kind of gives a little bit. You can really see the E and the D strings kind of flexing there. But the beauty here is that the strings help keep each other in tune, so there is no such thing as a string going out of tune from the other strings. They all work as a team now. And works phenomenally. I love it. Couldn't recommend it to anybody more. Coolest mod that I've seen. I really got to thank the Nutbuster guys for sort of showing that something like this works. And you know, for 35 bucks, you have tuning stability with your 1965 beautiful Strat. You wouldn't think of doing anything to the neck, but it works great. So I love it. It's cool. Get yourself one. Gotoh works. So does Floyd, but it's phenomenal. Worth every cent. You'll love it. Thank you. So in closing, I just want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you learned a little something. And I can certainly say that these little Kramer Focus VT211Ss are really sweet guitars. I've got this black one that is just sort of the one that I spent the minimal amount of time and money on, and just how good something can work with a few simple mods, such as the bridge mod with the PRS screws, the Floyd Rose nut, which is optional. I did the Graph Tech nut, and of course the tuners are a must. So again, thanks everybody for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and I will be bringing on many more videos. I hope that will be helpful to everybody else there in YouTube world. Thank you. Bye-bye.